श्री महाभारत कथा। श्री महाभारत कथा। महाभारत कथा। कथा है पुरुषार्थ की, ये स्वार्थ की, परमार्थ की, सारथी जिसके बने श्री कृष्ण भारत पाथ की। शब्द दिग्घोषित हुआ जब सत्य सार्थक सर्वथा। शब्द दिग्घोषित हुआ। यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत, अभ्युत्थानम् अधर्मस्य, तदात्मानं सृजाम्यहम्, परित्राणाय साधूनां, विनाशाय च दुष्कृतां, धर्म संस्थापनार्थाय संभवामि युगे युगे।
In a remote region in the midst of the ocean, the Nishadas have their fair home, having eaten the thousands of Nishadas that live there. Bring thou Amrita, O sinless one. Neither Agni nor Surya truly can consume so much as does a Brahmana of rigid vows when angry. By these various indications must thou know a good Brahmana. Him shouldst thou know as the best amongst Brahmanas who, having entered thy throat, would torture thee as a fishhook, or burn thee as blazing charcoal. Although she knew the incomparable strength of her son, yet she blessed him heartily, for deceived by the snakes, she was very much afflicted by woe. And she said, Let Marut, the god of the winds, protect thy wings, and Surya and Soma thy vertebral regions. Let Agni protect thy head, and the Vasas thy whole body. I also, O child, engaged in beneficial ceremonies, shall sit here for your welfare. Go then, O child, in safety to accomplish thy purpose. Nemo. Then Garuda, having heard the words of his mother, stretched his wings and ascended the skies. And endued with great strength, he soon fell upon the Nishadas, hungry and like another Yama. And bent upon slaying the Nishadas, he raised a great quantity of dust that overspread the firmament, and sucking up water from amid the ocean, shook the trees growing on the adjacent mountains. And then that lord of birds obstructed the principal thoroughfares of the town of the Nishadas by his mouth, increasing its orifice at will. And the Nishadas began to fly in great haste in the direction of the open mouth of the great serpent-eater. Then Garuda, having heard the words of his mother, stretched his wings and ascended the skies. And bent upon slaying the Nishadas, he raised a great quantity of dust that overspread the firmament, and sucking up water from amid the ocean, shook the trees growing on the adjacent mountains. And as birds in great affliction ascend by 1,000 into the skies when the trees in a forest are shaken by the winds, so those Nishadas, blinded by the dust raised by the storm, entered the wide-extending cleft of Garuda's mouth, open to receive them. A certain Brahmana with his wife had entered the throat of that ranger of the skies. The former began to burn the bird's throat like a piece of flaming charcoal. Him Garuda addressed, saying, O best of Brahmanas, come out soon from my mouth, which I open for thee. Yea. A certain Brahmana with his wife had entered the throat of that ranger of the skies. The former began to burn the bird's throat like a piece of flaming charcoal. Him Garuda addressed, saying, O best of Brahmanas, come out soon from my mouth, which I open for thee. Now? Unto Garuda, who had thus addressed him, that Brahmana said, Oh, let this woman of the Nishada caste, who is my wife, also come out with me. And Garuda said, taking the woman also of the Nishada caste with thee, come out soon. And when that Brahmana had come out with his wife, that lord of birds, fleet as the mind, stretching his wings, ascended the skies. He then saw his father, and, hailed by him, Garuda, of incomparable prowess, made proper answers. And the great Rishi, Kasyapa, then asked him, O child, is it well with thee? Dost thou get sufficient food every day? Is there food in plenty for thee in the world of men? Garuda replied, My mother is ever well, and so is my brother, and so am I. Aye. And then that lord of birds, fleet as the mind, stretching his wings, ascended the skies. He then saw his father, and hailed by him, Garuda, of incomparable prowess, made proper answers. But, father, I do not always obtain plenty of food, for which my peace is incomplete. I am sent by the snakes to fetch the excellent Amrita. Noom, this lake thou seest is sacred. It hath been heard of even in the heavens. There is an elephant with face downwards, who continually draggeth a tortoise, his elder brother. There was of old a great Rishi of the name of Vibhavasu. He was exceedingly wrathful. He had a younger brother of the name of Supratika. The latter was averse to keeping his wealth jointly with his brothers, and Supratika would always speak of partition. After some time, his brother Vibhavasu told Supratika, It is from great foolishness that persons blinded by love of wealth always desire to make a partition of their patrimony. No, cheers. But as thou, Supratika, without regarding my advice, impelled by desire of separation, always wishes to make an arrangement about your property, thou shalt become an elephant. Neftanin. And thus on account of wealth those two fools, Supratika and Vibhavasu, from each other's curse, have become an elephant and a tortoise respectively. Owing to their wrath, they have both become inferior animals, and they are engaged in hostilities with each other, proud of their excessive strength and the weight of their bodies. And in this lake, those two beings of huge bodies are engaged in acts, according to their former hostility. And seeing him, the elephant, curling his trunk, rusheth into the water, and endued with great energy, with motion of his tusks and forepart of his trunk and tail and feet, he agitates the water of the lake, abounding with fishes. And the tortoise also of great strength, with upraised head, cometh forward for an encounter. He saw that expanse of clear water with birds of various kinds all around. And remembering the words of his father, that ranger of the skies possessed of great swiftness of motion, seized the elephant and the tortoise, one each claw. And that bird then soared high into the air, and he came upon a sacred place called Alamva, and saw many divine trees. And struck by the wind raised by his wings, those trees began to shake with fear. And those divine trees, having golden boughs, feared that they would break. And the ranger of the skies, seeing that those trees capable of granting every wish were quaking with fear, went to other trees of incomparable appearance. And there was a large banyan among them, which had grown into gigantic proportions, that spoke unto that lord of bird, coursing towards it with the fleetness of the mind, Sit thou on this large branch of mine, extending 100 yojanas, and eat the elephant and the tortoise. Nia, when that best of birds, of great swiftness and of body resembling a mountain, quickly alighted upon a bough of that banyan tree, the resort of thousands of winged creatures, that bough also full of leaves shook and broke down. At the very touch by Garuda of great might with his feet, the branch of the tree broke as it was caught by Garuda. Casting his eyes around in wonder, he saw Valakilya rishis hanging therefrom with heads downwards, and engaged in ascetic penances, reflecting that if that bough fell down, the rishis would be slain. The mighty one held the elephant and the tortoise, still more firmly, with his claws, and from fear of slaying the rishis and desire of saving them, held that bough in his beaks, and rose on his wings. And shaking the mountains by his wings, Garuda leisurely coursed through the skies. And as he soared with the elephant and the tortoise in his claws, he beheld various regions underneath. Desiring as he did to save the Valakalias, he saw not a spot whereon to sit. At last he went to that foremost of mountains called Gandhamadana. There he saw his father Kasyapa engaged in ascetic devotions. Kasyapa also saw his son, that ranger of the skies, of divine form, possessed of great splendor, and energy, and strength, and endued with the speed of the wind or the mind, huge as a mountain peak, a ready smiter like the curse of a Brahmana, inconceivable, indescribable, frightful to all creatures, possessed of great prowess, terrible, of the splendor of Agni himself, and incapable of being overcome by the deities, Danavas, and invincible Rakshasas, capable of splitting mountain summits, and sucking the ocean itself, and destroying the three worlds, fierce, and looking like Yama himself. Kasyapa said, O child, do not commit a rash act, for then thou wouldst have to suffer pain. Lord.
सीख हम बीते युगों से नए युग का करे स्वागत करे स्वागत करे स्वागत करे स्वागत
भारत की है कहानी